Is that the starting bell? All right, folks. Looks like it's about 11:30. We'll get started. Thanks for coming. Oh, sea change. Sounds good. My name's Colin McAllister. I'm going to be talking about coding and just go through the progression of what I do. I'm a teacher out of Dallastown in York, Pennsylvania. So I'll go through a few of the things. I'm pretty laid back, pretty casual, so if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me rather than wait until the end. I'm happy to explain anything if you have any questions. Pittsburgh. Being in York County, we're not too far from Hershey, so this is my first time here at the convention center, just like everyone else with PTC. It's a nice change. However, my wife is from this area. Anyone from the Pittsburgh area here? So, my wife's family moved down to Florida a number of years ago. There was a football game on. I did not bring any of that gear down. They just have extra Pittsburgh Steelers jerseys just in case for family and relatives if it's a Sunday or Monday and the games are on. So at least I can say that I have a little bit of extended roots here in Pittsburgh, so it's nice. It's nice being downtown too. My wife's from Monroeville, went to Gateway High School. So, I'm a math teacher. I'm also department chair at, like I said, Dallastown. We're in York, about 200 miles from here, right in between Harrisburg and Baltimore. I used to teach geometry. Kids had to take geometry. It was tough getting some of those kids that didn't want to be there to go through the motions of geometry. Now I teach the electives, computer science, all day, every day. And if kids don't do what I want, I just say, you signed up for this. Get to work. Works really, really well. So what I did is over a number of years, I created 4 courses that the kids can take. I even have some of the kids from the middle school come up and take my courses as well. So we have Computer Programming 1, Computer Programming 2. I teach both AP classes as well, CSA and Principles. I'm in a relatively big school district. We have 2,000 plus students at the high school, graduating class of over 500. So there are plenty of kids looking to take those computer science classes. with that being said, whether you have a program in place or you're looking to introduce something, it's very important to understand what software and hardware your students have. Right now we're running Lenovo's, so I had all these grand designs of running Unity and all these other high-end programs that don't work on these devices. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind if you're trying to develop some sort of course sequencing. If you're on Apple products, you might want to look at the Swift stuff, which is pretty neat, but we have the Lenovo, so that's why I went through what I had to deal with in terms of computers. So quickly, a few just statistics, and this is relatively new. This is from December, just a couple of months ago. 9 in 10 parents want their kids to take computer science classes. Only 1 in 4 schools actually offer them. So there's not a lot of opportunity for some of the kids in some of the districts, especially if you're in maybe a city district. So sometimes the opportunities and equity is not quite there for some of those students. 2/3 of new jobs are going to be in STEM fields. So just giving your kids the opportunity to take some of these classes is a huge benefit. I have kids coming back every year that go into computer science and say how easy some of the introduction classes are based on what we've done in Dallastown. Not many people go to school for comp sci though. Only 3% of college students are graduating with degrees. So that's not many students that are out there pursuing this degree field. And lastly, in PA, comp sci does count as a math credit. In 22 states though, it doesn't count for anything other than an elective. So it's nice in PA, we have a little bit of the backing for that graduation requirement. And there's a huge disparity with the numbers of females and black students, and I see that all the time. Most of my students come in are, the 9th grade boys. What do you want to do? I want to make games. Sounds good. So my class is an easy A, I'll call it. It's an introductory class, but kids realize real quick whether they want to take more computer science classes or they do not. Yeah, they realize real quick this is not quite what I thought it was. It's a little bit more maybe nitpicky than I thought. I just want to make whatever new game is coming out. So that means to me more than some of the kids that stay on. Some of the kids learning in my class that they don't like computer science. So, takeaways. Again, if you're new to this, I was new to it. I had no background in coding at all. I was just a geometry teacher. I said we need to do programming classes. Luckily, the school board was like, okay, do whatever you want, and they gave me free rein to kind of start classes up. I was doing the projects with the kids in the first class, then the second class, then the AP class, and now I know this much about computer programming. So you don't have to be an expert. Just get something started, get the kids involved. Computer science is an ocean. Even with the number of years that I've been doing it, kids are well beyond what I know, even in these first couple of classes. So it's really interesting to see what kids' skill sets they come in with. What you need to do is kind of give them the opportunity to have experiences that will grow them. And that's what I kind of foster with the students. Second, Google's your best friend, right? Stack Overflow. If you don't know how to do something, you can just Google it and get the syntax in like 2 seconds. And that's the first thing I say to the kids. If they have a question, I'd be like, did you Google it first? Because the skills aren't about computer science per se. It's about how to be a student and how to learn. That's what I want to get to the students. So even if it's social studies or English, find the answer yourself. If you can't find it, then come talk to me. So I really push for them to try and find out on their own. Like I said, students are going to know more than you. I have kids that are like, my dad's a computer programmer. I went to University of Maryland, College Park, and I did 5 summers in Python and C++. And okay, we'll find something for you to do. Don't worry about it. So, but there will be some students that know more than you, and that's okay. And lastly, if you have the link, there's some free resources at the end. So if you want The only thing with computer science is it's real nice when things are free. It's not nice when they become pay. That's the new thing now, is things that used to be free, now all of a sudden they have subscription based. And I don't know if your district's like mine, but no money is the way to go. So just to real quickly, my course progression. In 2014, I started up my Computer Programming 1 course, which is code.org for like a couple days, just to get the kids, drag and drop type stuff. And then we go through a Microsoft product called Kodu, and then we also incorporate Alice as well, which is out of Carnegie Mellon, right around the block. Then the next year I incorporated Computer Programming 2, which is essentially just a stock college textbook. And I say, you learned all the core skills of Computer Programming 1, and the kids start, and they work their way through. They will never get through that textbook. It goes into the most complex stuff that I haven't even seen. But I have some kids well working into probably what they'd be doing in their 3rd year of college. So that works out real well. And then AP Comp Sci, essentially the Computer Programming 2 course is the same content. We just go into how to test and how to actually answer the free response questions in Computer Science A. And then the principles class, I started in the 2nd year. I think it started in 2016, but we use the code.org stuff for that as well. So there's a little bit of overflow from what I do with Computer Programming 1. They kind of see it again in the principles class. So code.org is a nice introduction if you don't have anywhere to start. I'm assuming most of you have seen this, and they just changed it around as well. I always have the kids start off with those maze puzzle problems. Which looks like this. And they actually just changed this syntax as well. If you've been to the site before, it used to say turn right, turn left, move forward. Now if you notice, they have all these just simple arrows. What's nice about this is even if you have kids that know a little bit about coding, you can, over here, toggle off and show it as the code as well. So it's very easily to relate this to, yes, this is block based, but it's also JavaScript as well. So there's that tie in there, because sometimes the kids are like, oh, this is too easy with the drag and drop. So again, if you haven't been on code.org, there's tons from the hour of code. There's tons of stuff on there. Kids can just lose themselves. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, I'm just going to go over some quick coding basics about what I hit first in terms of the Computer Programming 1 class, and then how we go from there. So the first thing is just strings. What is a literal string? If kids can understand that, that's kind of the building blocks, kind of how to output to the console. That's a quick, easy way for them to see a result from what they're trying to do. Then we go through if statements. If one thing happens, then what's going to be the second end of that? Loops, and lastly, object-oriented programming. In terms of these 4 things, these are like the core basics of what my Computer Programming 1 class is. However, I stress to them that it's about the logic. It's not about Java, it's not about Python, it's not about what language you're using, about the logic behind it. If they understand the logic, then they can learn the syntax in no time. So I stress that over and over again, because I used to get a lot of questions about why my class is Java-based. Well, because that's what the AP test is in. Why would I do Python if I know that the students are going to take the test in Java? So that's where we're on. So what is Kodu? Again, this is the Computer Programming 1 class. You get a lot of students that want to make games. Kodu is a great way to make a game super fast. I'm going to give you a super quick demo in a couple minutes, but it's very interactive, it's very visually appealing, and you can make things happen very quickly. So that's essentially what I do in the Computer Programming 1 class. The lessons I go through, and the way I gear my lessons is I give them about a 10-minute overview of creating objects, landscapes, how to control using paths, creatables, camera angles, power-ups, scoring, those are each individual lessons, and I show them the bare minimum. I want them to be creative with the content. What happens is if I say, okay, we're going to do controls today. I'm going to make a race game. Then I have 25 kids making a race game. I feel it as if whatever I show them, they try to mimic. So I try and show them barely anything, and then they can be creative with it. I'm going to go through to show you a couple examples of what some of the students have come up with. Again, I don't really push them in any direction. They kind of just come up with things on their own. So if I open Coding, I had it open just before the session. Here's one a student made a little while ago. Again, I show them as little as possible, that way they can extend their knowledge on their own. So this student made a replica of, remember good old Guitar Hero? This is very similar. So it starts off, and then we have colors, very visual. So then what you do is, as they come out, you have to try and kind of hit them, just like Guitar Hero, with the keys from the guitar. Interesting. A little bit more creative than I would have thought the kids were going to come up with, so I was very happy with this one.
How long does that take a student? Like, was that a 9 week?
You could, I generally take about three weeks to do this, and then I move into the secondary portion. Yes?
Is that free?
Coding's free, yes. Like I said, free is the way to go. We're gonna make sure everything's free here. I'll show you one more. Maybe two more. We'll see. One thing I will say, in the couple of years I've been programming, I've changed my vocabulary in terms of the way I teach. You learn very quickly that the boys want to create games and the girls want to create stories. So if you take a look at these, I try not to call these games. I try to call them programs instead, because then the girls feel like they have to make some sort of game where they want something more, a little bit more interactive, where they have conversations and they're a little bit more on a storyline rather than like a soccer game or a first-person shooter or whatever they're trying to create. So again, a lot of times too, the girls are much more interested in the layouts and the landscapes and making things look a certain way as opposed to just the gameplay itself. So this is something, again, you're a knight, and I don't know why I feel like I'm so old now. I use the arrows to control everything. All the kids use WASD now, W-A-S-D. So weird doing it with your left hand. But anyway, same thing, a little bit more of a story-based type game where you go around and you have to kind of complete a storyline. So that's a little difference that I found between the boys and the girls. And then last one I'll show you. Maze hunt. Not good that it shows you the maze beforehand, but what happens is when you actually play the game in first person, it gets a whole lot more interesting. So again, you can take a look at this. Again, it's amazing how quickly you can show these kids a few things and they make this very rich environment. You see, even in the background, they have something to kind of take the eye away. And as you move through, WASD, right? Just a very quick way to get the kids exposed to those objects and programming them, and they get to create something within a couple of weeks rather than doing it something Java where it's like, okay, we're going to do a Fahrenheit to Celsius converter. Sweet. We don't care that much. Yes, if you on the last slide, there's a you could just Google Kodu, K-O-D-U, and they have a keyboard and mouse tutorial, and that's where all my lessons came from. I did not create them on my own. I just kind of like stole them from the teachers and tutorials and just made them individual lessons. And I paired out what I wanted to, because some of them can be a little bit longer than I'd like. Like I said, I like 5 or 10 minutes to show them something and they can just play with it for a while.
And then is that like a project at the end?
Yep, exactly, yep.
Put that, you don't have to do it now, you can put it back up.
Yeah, yep,
You know, the slides to get the.
sure. I can put that back up at the end.
Okay.
Okay. After I go through that, like I said, a couple weeks, yes.
Is Kodu like a drop and drive program?
You want to see it?
Or
Yeah, I'll go through a quick little tutorial of it. Okay. Unplanned, so we'll do this together, right? Anybody wants me to add anything, let me know, and I'll be happy to do it. They did just make a few upgrades, so there are a few new things that I haven't even seen in the past couple weeks. So we'll see. First thing I always do, again, taking a second, just reflecting back on what we just looked at. This is what you start with. Nothing. Okay? So all the students had created everything and started with this. First thing I do is I come over to this little tool right here, and I make a bigger role to play in, right? Otherwise, it's a little postage stamp. Can't get very far. So, if I come out, this little guy right here, this is all of your objects. All you do is you drop objects in, and then you program the objects. So I'm going to put in the main character Kodu. So now he's in there. Okay. Whenever you want to run the program, you just hit escape. So if I hit escape, this is the program running. I haven't coded anything, right? So nothing happens. Let's see how quickly we can animate this program. So I'm going to right click on Kodu, I'm going to go into program. This is what it looks like. It's a series of almost like if-else statements. When do's is what they call it in Kodu. So when I use the keyboard, in particular the arrows, I'm going to make Kodu move. And then you have all these qualifiers. If you want to hit the plus, you can make them go faster. And if you do it again, he's going to go faster. And if you do it again, he's going to go faster. And if you do it again, you can only do it 3 times. So, you hit escape. Now the program's running. So now I have my left and right buttons to actually move Kodu. It's not a long, laborious way to, if you hit the up arrow, move north or east or west. So it's very quick and easy for these kids to control the characters. So just to keep playing around, I'll make it a game. I'm going to add in a castle right here. I'm going to program the castle. When I get bumped by Kodu, I'm going to win the game. Okay? That quick, I can make it a game. It's the worst game ever, but it's a game. So now we go. Yeah. That's how quick you can make games. There's tons of landscaping tools on here as well, so we can raise and lower and make hills and paths. Yeah, let's play around a little bit more. I'm going to click back on him. I'm going to right click. I'm going to program him when They always hide this on me. For some reason, the space bar is in the more. Oh, no, let's change it. Space. Okay. What do we want Cody to do? We hit the space button, it's going to enact him to do something. So let's see what's in there. So if we go in here to the actions, he can create something, he can go camouflage, he can express an emotion. That sounds fun. What do you want him to be? Oh, here we go. Express hearts. So now I have my game, I get him my escape. He can walk around, and then, oh, look at those hearts. Adorable, right? So again, there's a lot of different things, and substitute anything. Space, he can jump. Space, he can go camouflage. It's endless. So then what you can do is I go through and I show the kids, okay, I'm gonna make a little path right here. Let's make this game a little bit harder. So now I have a white path, right? I'm gonna throw in someone to protect this, let's say a jet. I'm gonna program him to just always move on the path that is, I was qualified with the color, I believe that was a white path. So now we kind of have that jet in there kind of just patrolling, waiting to see what happens. We can make him creepy too. So let's change it so that he's going to move slowly. That's better, right? Just creeping along his path, waiting. So let's make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to program, and now at this time I'm also explaining to the kids what the real-time coding aspects are as well. So I can change this now to when he sees the Kodu close by, and this takes a little bit of fidgeting. I'm going to switch to page 2. So now on page 2, I'm going to have a whole secondary set of behaviors for this jet. So now I'm going to make it so that if the Kodu gets too close to him, it's going to attack. So let's see how that works. So now I'm going to switch over to page 2, and now you can start talking about loops. If something happens, you go to page 2, and you can set it up on timers, and you can continuously have that go over and over and over again. So when I see the Kodu, I'm going to move towards it. And you'd be surprised how many kids get it and me confused. I'm not coding the Kodu right now, I'm coding the jet right now. So sometimes the students kind of forget what they're actually coding. So again, and this goes over into that object where I'm controlling this object right now. And what do? When I bump him, what's in actions? How about boom? And here's the big one. Me or it. Right? We're in the jet right now, so we want to boom the Kodu, so it's going to be the it. So let's see how it goes. So again, it's a little finicky sometimes. The Kodu is a distance away. Everything here is customizable. I can change what that close by distance is by the number of tiles if you zoom in. So if I run the game, every now and again, he'll come right off his line and come at me. So again, it's that quickly that I can explain to the kids how to set a path, have a character move on it, change its behaviors, and they're able to then extend that into the ways that they want to make whatever program, game, storyline that they want. Again, that was a super quick, fast, dirty way of some of the stuff in here. I think you get the overall general effect of it. Any questions about this program? Good? Okay. After I go through the code, like I said, probably about 3 weeks, and again, it depends on the class. If the kids are loving it and eating it up, I might spend a couple extra days. If they're kind of over it and I have like a bunch of 11th graders and 12th graders that might be a little bit kiddie for, I might kind of blast through that a little bit more quickly. This book right here is what I go to after I go through the coding. And this is the point where the class really diverges. They go through this book at their own pace. It goes through an intro, variables, input, output, and conditionals, and that's my expectation. That's where I expect all the students to get to. Some students complete this entire book. So they get to repetition, arrays, methods, objects, graphics. So the kids that are really into it get through the entire book. So it's really interesting to see some kids on chapter 2 and some kids on chapter 5 in the same class. $27. You do have to pay for this one. This is not a free ebook. However, but if you're going to get 15 copies of this, and I generally have the kids buddy up, work with someone, and they kind of work together through everything, kind of process. It's a really good textbook that I found for kids to just work at their own pace. And that book uses Alice and NetBeans. That's the 4th edition. I was running the 2nd edition, so they kind of get to the Java programming a whole lot faster. It uses NetBeans as well, but this right here is the program called Alice, if you've never heard of it before. As quick and colorful as Coda is, Alice is that nitty. If you want someone to move in Alice, you need to move the hip a certain degree, move forward at the same time, move the up. You have to do everything explicitly to make things work. So some kids that love Coda hate this because it's so nitpicky. But some kids love being able to raise an eyebrow a quarter of a degree to make some sort of an effect. So it's really interesting to see the difference between which programs the students gravitate to. So essentially what we have is we have a scene setup where you drag all your objects in and drop them. And that's it. That's all you do. You can position them. So for example, if you want a character's arm to raise, you can set that. So you make it look the way you want. After it looks the way you want, then you go into the programming. Again, you choose the object. So for example, here, you're choosing the shark, and you're going to program based on these drag and drop options. Again, what's nice is even though it's drag and drop, there's also a toggle button that will show you the Java back end of it as well. So even though they're dragging and dropping, I'm continually saying like this is an actual language. You're actually doing things in Java. There's also a Java to NetBeans plugin as well. So you can create something in here and then edit it on the NetBeans Java side. So once it's all done, the students can kind of pick what they want to do. So this is just an example of in my computer programming 1, I had a girl, she was relatively quiet. She really didn't ask me anything the entire trimester. She just plugged through the book, did all her work, and then she wrote this code in Java. They learned a number of graphics, double check, plus she actually even commented everything. So I was pretty impressed with that as well. So you can see this is where she draws the body. This is where she's filling the body in, blushes, shines. So what does this actually look like when you run this code? This. That's what she created. Pretty good. That takes a long time. It takes a long time to put these pixels right here. It takes a long time to figure out that this color band needs to go that much below the other colored band. So it's just interesting the angles that the students take when I'm in the classroom, and I kind of don't even know where they're going with it. You know, I'm checking up on them, and then all of a sudden they show me something like this. I'm like, oh, nice job. So it's very interesting the angles that they can take, and again, that's why I don't want to preset their minds with what they should do. I don't want to say, hey, you got to do a maze game, you got to do whatever project. I open it up for them, and they can choose on their own. Whatever aspects they enjoy, that's what I try and foster. So, I'm just going to zip through the rest of my classes. So this is the textbook for computer programming 2. Computer programming 1, this big bad textbook is what they go through at their own pace as well. Generally, chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 go rather swimmingly. Once they get up to the loops in chapter 5, that's where they start banging their heads against the wall. But I explain that to them. And students work at their own pace. I've chosen probably between 5 and 10 exercises from each chapter for them to demonstrate their knowledge. As I was doing my research for AP Comp Sci and just computer programming in general, I found that one of the biggest things kids can't do is they can't read technical information. So what I've done is I go ahead and I have the authors' PowerPoints, I make them go through the content on their own. I'll refine anything if they don't understand, but it's up to them to go through and understand what the classes are. What's the character class? What's the math class? How do we use it? How do we implement it? What's the while loop? What's the for loop? All that is there in the PowerPoint for them to digest. And then I'll go through some examples for them. So I think, again, that skill alone of them being able to take a textbook and the PowerPoints and take that information in and learn on their own is way better than me being like, okay, we're going to trace through this loop right now, when some kids are on chapter 6 and some kids are still on chapter 2. So again, in this path, I see some people zip right through the content, and I see some people really slow, have to process everything. And again, this textbook works well. I also teach the principles course as well. If you don't have that at that school, that is a class anyone can take, I think, with no background. So, for example, for my Computer Science A class, the kids taking Computer Programming 1 and 2, that really helps them. For this class, with code.org, they've done it all for you. I mean, it's a really nice curriculum. It's a really equitable class where a lot of kids are able to find a lot of success very quickly as well. So, if you don't have computer science principles, it's a very manageable class to teach as well if you know a little bit about computers. With that being said, there are a few programs as well in here that the students wrote. A big thing that Principles tries to hit on is abstraction and like reuse of code, essentially, creating functions. So here's a few examples of what some kids have created in this curriculum. So this is one of the programs. It's much more app-based rather than writing like a Java program. It's much more. It almost looks like a phone when you're using it, and they make this very, as well, quick with the graphics, and they get right into it. So, in terms of this, if we go in and take a look at the code, this picture will change every time. It's not a static picture. It's different. So, for example, you can see some of the functions that they've called. For example, there's a draw grass function. There's a draw flowers function. And then what they've done is they've kind of randomized where it goes. So if I run this program, you can kind of see where the flowers are and where the clouds are, where the sun is. If I run this program again, they all might be in different places. So just again, that reuse of code and that use of functions is a huge part of this class. And I'll just show you one more that I thought was good as well. So I have the kids kind of look at these programs and I say, what does it look like was reused over and over again in this design right here. And if you run it a couple times, you can start to see the things that change and move. For example, if you look at the books on the bookshelf, there's a lot of books right there, right? Do you want to create every single one of those books every single time? No. So what you do is, that becomes a method, then you can randomize it. So if you run it a couple times, man, this is slow. You could look at the bookshelf, see how many books are there, see what the colors are, and then you reset it, you run it again, and the number of books are different, the colors are different, and that's just reusable code that the kids can get this idea of very quickly that, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to make, I don't know how many books are on there, 100? I'm not going to write 100 lines of code to make 100 books. I'm going to have one line of code or one function of code and just loop that over and over again. And last one. Same thing. Now that we've seen two of them, you could probably say, okay, the stars are probably randomized, the planets are probably randomized, the ray of light from the upper left-hand corner probably will have different areas for which it's going to. And again, the kids are able to do this after not that much of exposure to some of the coding. So it really takes off relatively quickly. And then I teach computer science A as well. That's your straight Java class. That's going to be like, get right into it, hardware, software, Java. This textbook is really good. I've taken a lot of the labs off of their sites, and the Livens, they used to write the computer science AP tests. And they're very accessible as well. I've emailed them a bunch of times, and they get right back to me, the actual authors themselves. And they're phenomenal. So if you're looking at implementing, I know there's a lot of stuff out there, but this is a great textbook with a lot of great resources. Just like my slides got my stuff. Okay, again, in terms of money, school wanted me to start up computer science programming, but they weren't super pumped about throwing a ton of money at it. So if you can, write a grant. There's tons of grant money out there. So what I did was, with these classes being so visually appealing, I wrote a grant and got 2 flat screen TVs for the back of my room. So now if kids want, they can HDMI plug into their computers, make a 2-player game, and just play with each other. With that being said, I also, in that grant, wrote for 30 of these controllers as well. So now instead of the kids playing their games or programs with the computer, they actually have those Xbox controllers in their hands. That's made a big difference. And it's interesting. Half the kids love it, half the kids would rather just use the keyboard. So again, I leave all that open to them. So that was a nice little grant I wrote my first year that really got my program off the ground. And then I wrote another grant as well. DonorsChoose.org. You can put your stuff out there, and then random people can just throw money at it if they want. So what I did is I got a couple high top tables for the kids to run 68-minute classes. So if the kids want to get up and stand over at the high top tables, it's perfect for those kids. All I need is some jalapeno poppers to serve them, you know? If you do or you don't teach computer science, computer programming, whatever you want to call it, people are going to assume that you know it all. I also run the help desk. And the people think because I teach comp sci and Java, I know everything there is to know about why their accounts are locked out on Google whatever, or why they can't access some weird website that I've never even heard of. So I also will allow the students to explore. So say the kid's in my comp sci class and he hates it, but he really wants to get into cybersecurity, I'll try and find something else to kind of fit what his direction is. And there's a ton of stuff out there. Again, artificial intelligence is different from IT, is different from cybersecurity, is different from Internet of Things, is different. They're all completely different. But you're going to have the people say, oh, you teach comp science, you can just start robotics. I have no idea. I don't even know where to begin. So that's a really interesting element. But what I do, like I said, is try and just foster that. If the kids are interested, I have a couple of Raspberry Pis that I have where in my comp sci class, the kids aren't into that. But now all of a sudden they want to take the Raspberry Pis and they're trying to take a look at how startups work and what kind of operating systems they can get on there. So just having things and the ability to let them go in their own direction, I think is one of the best things that you can do, not keep it a rigid, static concept. And if you're into it, this website, it's free, open source, cybersecurity learning. There's tons of them out there. We have Cyber Patriot at our school through JRTC. I don't do anything with it, but I just give the kids the content. I signed up, and our school is an Oracle provider now, so I just have libraries of Oracle stuff. So if the kids want to go in and grab some of that information, they're free to do it. And like I said, there's resources. I'll go back to this first slide again if you want to jot down the PowerPoint presentation. You can grab that. I know some people said they look for resources, but these are all links to the actual place where you can find things. So for example, I didn't talk about Lightbot, but I'm sure you guys can play around if you choose to. But here's the coded curriculum if you'd like it. Here's the game lab where kids can actually go on and they can upload their games as well. Sometimes if kids are stuck, go on the game lab, see what other kids are making out there, see what you're interested in. And then Alice and the textbook are on here as well, along with my email. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. We're here for another. I'm happy to stick around for the next 15 minutes, and if you want to see Alice, if you want to see anything, I'm happy to answer any questions. If you have any questions, now's the time as well. Yes?
Are your courses semester-based or year-based?
We made a transition to trimesters a few years ago. So when I first started, it was a year long, twice a cycle, which was every 6 days.
And that's
Yep.
each one of those courses.
So now what I'm on now are on trimesters. So now the electives, I see every student for 60 straight days. For 68 minutes, one trimester. A major class would be 2 trimesters. So if you took geometry, there'd be an A and a B. 9th grade English, an A and a B. So I see them for 68 minutes a day for 60 days. That's 2 trimesters. And I don't know how I swung this, but most of those are first and second trimester. If you teach an AP class, not having them a month and a half before the exam is pretty tough. Mine are trimester 2 and 3, so I see them right into it, and I hit the stuff that we need to, and then I can go back to interfaces and stuff that's not assessed anymore with the computer science A classes. And then the principals has all the in-class time for the portfolio work as well. That'll be interesting next year when the one's gone. We'll get rid of the Explore. The principal's class is a portfolio base. 60% is on the test, 40% is on what they create and how they answer the questions. One of them is what I showed you, demonstrating that abstraction and the use of functions. And the other one is they have to do some sort of background research about something software. So, and that's 40% class. Yeah.
What kind of training did you get to teach the AP computer science principles? Like, what did you have to do to be able to teach that?
Okay. I didn't do anything, to be honest with you.
You didn't have to do something through code.org or?
Nope. Nope.
So you were approved for college board?
They have for you. Yeah, the nice thing about both of the textbooks that I showed, the Litbins and the code.org stuff, they have pre-written syllabuses that you can just put right into College Board, and they have an ID tag. If you've ever done it before, you can just put in the reference number, and it gets approved that day. So it's very seamless.
But as far as like with code.org, I thought you had to go through training with them. You didn't?
Nope.
You just sign up that you're going to teach it and?
Done. That's it. Sign up, teach it. Yeah, they again, they do a great job. They have, don't get me wrong, I did work myself.
Right, but
I had to teach myself all of this because I was a geometry teacher, not a computer science teacher. I took one class in college in Maple, which is terrible. I'm surprised you can teach computer science after taking that class. But yeah, they have teacher packets, and they're really great. It's a very manageable program from what I found, and they're making it better every year. There were a few things last year that I thought were a little bit cumbersome, code.org, and they streamlined it, and that stuff's gone now, and the feedback that they get, they just constantly revamp it. But like I said, they have teacher resources. It's a packet that you can download, and it's intro, what you need to know, what kids might ask, everything is right there. If you take 15 minutes the day before, you can do that next lesson. And that's where I was. I was like the day before the lessons.
It's like I teach Python and web design, and I wanted to see about offering that next year, and I was trying to see what I had to do to.
The principal class would be really nice. Code.org uses JavaScript, which is nice, but they have drag and drop, but then you can toggle it on and off so the kids can write themselves. The only issue with that is sometimes they kind of pigeonhole the kids into what they're looking for. So if kids know how to write a loop, they won't let them get there until they go through the loops. So sometimes the kids are a little bit ahead of the curriculum, especially if they take some of my previous classes. But again, the curriculum is not bad. I have a lot of kids very successful. My first year, I had every student got a 3 or above. So everyone was earning college credit for the principal's class. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Like I said, if you want to see any of the programs, I'm here for the next 10 minutes. If not, you grab yourself some coffee. Yeah, for code.org, sign up. You put your credentials in for a teacher, and then you have access, and then you create a class, which takes 2 seconds, and then you get a code, and then all the kids go. Assessments, so everything is right in there. It's, practice AP file, everything is right in there. It works really well.
Thank you.
See you, have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. The information I teach AP Computer Science A, but next year they're trying to get CST for another teacher. He thought he was going to have to go formally do a training.
Well, that's what I thought.
Because I feel like I did with CSA years ago, but it was probably just for maybe my sake.
Yeah, they have
just to learn.
down by us is Goucher College, which is like in the Towson area down on the other line of Maryland. And they do like a CSA training, which is phenomenal. The guy is awesome. And I did that after my first year teaching CSA, and it was awesome. Principals of study, they don't really have those out there.
Well, he was going to have to go to Washington, state of Washington.
I know, I was looking and I was really confused. I'm like, there's no training around here, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, because I looked into it as well. I was going to do the week, but there was nothing like in Philly, there was nothing out here, there was nothing in Baltimore. I was like, why do you have to go to these crazy places for this training? And then it was
weird.
Online.
Yeah. Carnegie Mellon used to do, back in the day, that's where I got my CSA training. That was 12 years ago. But, I don't know.
Was it Reach Han at the US by chance?
Gosh, I don't know. It was so long ago. It was a couple people there. I remember, and I got trained in Alice too, like for a week, way back when too. Yeah, I used to do Alice. I said, I'll do it anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Hey, no problem. It's one of those things where they ask you, but
Right. Yeah.
the concrete.
Plus, I got all that too. Cause like kids are like serious. When the guy runs, like I have to open them up and like. I'm like, yeah,
This joint, that joint, this joint. Love it. Just control everything. So the boys are like, I just want to like do the make you jump. It's like I can do all this here and jump and run, and then you get ones where it's like the whole character just moves.
Yeah, it's funny. But
So,
yeah, I like how you approach it. You give them just, okay, you can do this, you can do that.
So many people do GUI like that. I don't know much about GUI, but that's what they're interested in. Now they're doing like landed expressions on events and everything. And it's just like good.
Now what's that? What's the GUI stuff? Is that language?
Java.
Oh, in Java.
Yeah, they
okay.
do it in Java,
Yeah.
and we use NetBeans, and there's the Java FX. You can kind of start with a preset, but like I said, some of my kids are trying to get into like competitions and things of that nature. So they're creating stuff that's text based, but then they want the front end to it as well. So
Yeah.
they did a project for it was like how safe is your password?
Okay.
But they didn't want it to be text based. They wanted it GUI because then you can make a jar and you can kind of push it out, and anyone can start running it if you just use the system apps. Kind of
Yeah, it's kind of, it's very old,
yeah, definitely.
And that's, we do a lot of text-based stuff, and what, I mean,
You have to feel.
yeah, if we eat pizza.
And it's crazy, like you get these kids that are solid, and then all of a sudden you put the computer away, and you're like, yo, like this class, and they're like,
Yeah,
I forgot how to
yeah.
even like start a class.
Sure, yeah, that's, we, try to train, do a little bit all through the year.
Yeah. And I make my tests monsters. I make my tests just killer. Yeah. But then I have a lab end on the other side of it, so they will get those. I'll sit next to them. I have to. So even if they're getting 50s on the test, they'll average out to 75. I mean, 50 is pretty low. But I want them to be used to be like, I can't answer this question. I don't want them to get to the AP exam and be like, spend 20 minutes on one question.
Right,
So they're
yeah.
kind of used to now like answering the ones they know real quick and then kind of going back and getting everything squared away.
Do you do any dual enrollment yet?
We have partnered with Harrisburg University.
Okay.
So Harrisburg University will give 4 credits for taking my course and transcript my grading.
Oh, that's cool. Like you don't have to do anything extra special.
Yeah.
Trust that, because you're teaching the AP.
Right, they kind of went through my curriculum and they'll get like I said, a 4-credit class. I tell my kids, all my kids that come through my class, they can do the AP exam. Like they can get a 3 on it. Most of them are like 4s and 5s.
Yeah, sure,
unless I'm like,
really.
sometimes I'm like, don't take the test.
Oh, I've tried to talk to you now too.
But it's $85 for the test, or it's $100 of credit for Harrisburg. Why do you spend $400 when you can take this test and transcripts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, we do for the PIT, which is nice. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, yeah, nice.
They have a college and high school.
Okay.
So, and it's cheap too. It's like $235.
Yeah.
And so I just partner with my APA. It's like CS0007, and it almost matches.
Oh yeah.
And so, then they get paid for it, which is pretty nice.
What curriculum do you use for your ag?
I just like kind of make a job,
Oh yeah.
I mean, but like I had a book years ago, and now I just kind of like I need to know what I need to get through. And
There's a
I just
guy.
don't like spending money. My school district doesn't either, so I haven't bought a book. I haven't bought a book. I got it about 12 years ago. I got the books, and I've still been using sort of as the foundation. But I don't even know the technical.
I went down to this guy's site.
No, I haven't.
All like worksheets, loops, videos.
Yeah.
This guy is
Take a
just
picture.
unbelievable. I mean,
Have you heard of Coding Bat?
yeah. Oh, did you get the second coding back?
No.
My kids love it. So same thing. Yeah, there's a coding back 2.
Okay. I don't know, maybe. I mean, I go to Coding Bat. But
Which the most frustrating thing of this entire thing, I found this. One of my students found this,
Okay.
and I was all pumped. Like I cranked them out in no time.
Yeah.
Except for this one right here.
It's looking for strings.
Yes.
String, int.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you can't get that
Yeah.
one correct. I can make it an int, and then get this one correct, but then all the other ones are wrong.
Interesting. So,
I didn't contact the guy and let him know. This is
yeah,
through.
expected. Okay, the run is 5. So.
It's returning a string anyway. So even if I return that 5.
Yeah.
Would I do this recursively?